I'm first, right?
Yes, you are. This is your first time reading, right?
Yeah. Oh God.
Awesome.
Give me the panic stick.
You can do it. We believe in you. You can do it.
So, maybe real quick concerning criticism. Yes. I am not an English speaker as a first language. Okay. So if there's anything weird concerning like English words or how it's worded or anything, that would be nice. Like not spelling. It's just I can do that another time. Yeah, I think that's one of the most important parts, I guess. Yeah, so it's called At Night, Content Warning, Implied PTSD. Anastasia woke up, not sure what had interrupted her sleep, when a loud noise echoed from a room beneath her. She couldn't help but sigh as she noticed the time, a clock showing that it was still deep into the night. Her hopes for a sound and dreamless sleep, at least this time, were shattered yet again. It didn't help that she's a light sleeper anyway, waking up due to the smallest of disturbances. Considering it was her responsibility to oversee most of their plans, it was no wonder her sleep routine was messed up. The void drawing nearer every day wasn't exactly a reason to go to rest feeling safe either. Of course, it didn't help that the likes of Mimi and Dementio resided here, always up to no good and not caring for the other inhabitants of the castle. Accepting once again to scatter one of their jokes, although she still hoped it would turn out to be a door closed too loudly, Anastasia dressed herself into something more appropriate, took her glasses, and made her way to the cause of the disturbance. It turned out to be the kitchen, which only worried her more and diminished her hopes that she could head back to sleep in no time. As she drew nearer, she noticed through the open door that someone was sitting at a table. The figure was bent forward, with the head resting on one hand, while the other held a cup of steaming liquid in it. Not wearing any of his characteristic clothes, it took her a moment to recognize him as Dementio. He wore a tank top and baggy pants, covering most of his legs. His hands, however, were ungloved, leaving the arms and hands free to show various nasty scars running along them. It wasn't this raw side of him that made Anastasia halt, staring at Dementio perplexed. It was his face, absent of the mocking smile he normally wore, and his eyes closed, a slight tormented expression present. He didn't move at all, a stark contrast to his usual mannerism. Anastasia wasn't sure if he even noticed her. He seemed so lost in thoughts that he didn't take in anything happening around him. It took her a moment to gather herself, faced with such an unordinary situation, but a slight worry for Dementio started to creep up in her. She made a few cautious steps forward, now only separated by the table between them as she raised her voice. Dementio? Her voice was filled with worry, more so than she intended, but she got attention. Dementio's eyes snapped open with his head jerking upwards. Taking in the situation in mere moments, his expression switched from a surprise to a more neutral one. A little static smile on his face, albeit Anastasia still made out some anxiousness in his eyes of being discovered without him noticing. Ah, Anastasia, what brings you here at this time of the night? Shouldn't you be asleep, dreaming like a bear in its winter nest? Anastasia only raised her eyebrows at his attempt to divert her attention. Are you alright, Dementio? I do not believe I've ever seen you in the middle of the night without trying to steer some trouble. Dementio's smile faltered a bit and he looked at her, intending to say something, but his gaze went past her, staring into the nothingness for a moment. He then lowered his head a bit, glancing into his cup without saying anything, already lost in his thoughts yet again. Anastasia also looked at the drink before him and frowned at its content. Coffee? You usually prefer tea? It was more of a statement, but Dementio answered her anyway, with a bitter smile on his lips, still looking down. Tea is for the taste, for the calming feeling in your chest as it warms your body. But if you want to stay awake... He lifted the cup up then. Coffee it is. He took a mouthful of its content. It reminded Anastasia of herself whenever she had nightmares. Waking up in the middle of the night, tossing and turning with the urge of staying awake and to not let the demons into her mind again. How many cups of coffee were downed in such nights she does not know. Feeling a connection with his troubles, she voiced her thoughts, trying to let him understand that he doesn't need to feel isolated. If you want to talk about... Dementio interrupted her the moment he noticed what she tried to do. Anastasia, please stop. I don't try to pry into your past, so please stay clear from mine. It is over. It is not something we are able to change. Yet it torments you enough to let it steal your sleep and mind at night. There was silence for a few seconds. Then Dementio let out a laugh under his breath, smiling humorless as he reinforced his grip on the cup. What happened all those years ago? He nearly lost himself in his memories, but then continued. Those are my own little demons I created, but it is nothing I can ever hope to change. Dementio then stood up, startling Anastasia. She immediately adjusted her glasses, more out of a reflex than a need, while Dementio drank the rest of his coffee. Now, I believe there was enough unnecessary detour into my past. I wish you a sound sleep, Anastasia. But before Dementio was able to raise his hand, ready to teleport back to his room, Anastasia walked down the table, closing the distance between them. He froze as she hugged him. She may not know what keeps him awake at night. She probably never will. Everyone here has had their fair share of mistakes they made and demons that haunted them. They wouldn't be here otherwise. But that doesn't mean he has to face them alone. It isn't really in her expertise or character to comfort others, but if she was able to take just a little bit off his shoulders, it was worth it. For a few moments time seemed to stop. Then, slowly, Dementio lowered his head to rest on her shoulder. It felt as if he didn't see Anastasia right there. She seemed to be someone else for an instant, someone far more important to him, someone he needs, someone who is probably long gone. After a few minutes, Dementio freed himself from the hug, avoiding looking directly into her eyes. He raised his hand and clicked his fingers, not before taking one last glance at Anastasia before vanishing. Anastasia smiled a little. She was close enough to hear the words he muttered before he left. A silent thank you still echoing in her head as she made her way back to her room, ready to go to sleep.
Oh, that's sweet.
Aww,
that was so wholesome. Oh my god, I love that.
Yeah, it was so good.
Hi,
Lexi.
Okay. I love it.
I was hoping. Okay.
I
That was super, super cute. I love your characterization.
That was really cool.
Yeah, thanks. I really enjoyed how the characters didn't actually talk about anything, but you still felt that companionship and the little moment between the two of them where they kind of understood that, at least Anastasia understood that she wasn't ever going to learn more about this, but that she would be there anyway. It's a very good way of showing support without opening a can of worms, as it were. And I think that's what makes it sweet and cute.
I mean, I've always imagined the whole troupe as having some kind of issues they had, but never really talking about it.
Oh, same.
And never really knowing about it. They're okay, we're going to destroy this word and make perfect words. But it's still kind of, I don't know, it's just popped into my mind at midnight sometime.
That's really cool. I mean, there were two things that I really enjoyed. One was that you just implied pretty clearly that Nasty doesn't feel safe around everyone in Count Black. And I think that's a really cool dynamic to point out that the crew may not be as well meshed together. Sometimes you have the dynamics where they're really tight, like Sam's story, and it's awesome. But also a neat dynamic is when they're just a little bit hesitant and the only thing that's really holding them together is the count. And you got that impression across in a paragraph. And I really appreciate that.
Oh, thanks.
The other thing is that Dementio, I mean, maybe it's just me, but I have a very hard time sympathizing with Dementio as a character. He's entertaining, he's amusing, but he's like Bill. He's awful. You don't feel bad for him. He's just entertaining. But like in this one little bit, you actually, just like with that line about him not being able to change his past and just moving on, you all of a sudden give him grounds to why he's so determined to make a perfect world and what that may look like. And that world, for your version, may not be a world where he's just the king of everything. It may be legitimately an attempt to fix something that he feels like he did in the past. And that is the driving force that makes him do what he did. And I like that too. It's really good.
Oh, what a great interpretation.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think I'm not really came up with it wholly myself. I kind of snatched it up from someone else on Tumblr. I think Boom Shaker Art or something was she was called.
Oh yeah, I love her work.
Yeah, and it was like
so much. Yeah,
basically it was just about that Dementio is like the son of the magician. There was like the one that wrote. Yeah, and his sister was like
the master magician. I think what Carson said. Yeah,
and his sister who died and then was made into the
she
Pixel
became
Queen.
The Pixel Queen.
And then they meant you having to kill her, actually. So yeah.
That's is that what the PTSD is here?
Yes, that is.
Oh, no!
That's my
really
thing.
Cool.
That's literally my thing, that the only thing he wants is to have his sister back.
Guy.
That's great. And I love how you you just like kind of throw back all of my expectations in my face just with this tiny little bit. I really appreciate that from a writing style.
Thank you very much.
From a critique standpoint, the only major thing that I noticed, like the word choices were unique, but they worked and actually made the piece delightful to hear those word choices that are a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
But I did notice that you had some past and present tense mixed in there in a way that felt awkward. But that's not like a bilingual thing. I know a lot of writers who accidentally do that. That's the only overarching thing.
I do it even in German, so. But yeah, thanks for pointing it out.
Awesome.
And I can go through it again.
I did enjoy the dialogue a lot. It wasn't.
Thanks very much, guys.
It wasn't how like people would talk while they're having a conversation, but it was a very, I want to say, poetic and storybook way, and it expressed a lot more of that theme of the story rather than just like two characters talking, and it was really nice.